Explosions and rocket fire as forces move towards two of the biggest territories held by ISIS. So can the terror group be stopped? A live report just ahead. Also, Israel's new defense minister, a controversial appointment. What will it mean for the volatile region? Plus,
this guy jumps to rob a bus passenger. No one intervenes when this man is tackled for his gold chain.
the rise in robberies across Rio de Janeiro. What will it mean for the Olympic teams heading there? Hello, I'm Lynda Kinkade in for Becky Anderson, and you're watching Connect the World. Thanks for joining us. The Afghan government is calling on the new leader of the Taliban to join peace talks or face the consequences. The Taliban have named a religious scholar as their new chief after confirming that his predecessor was in fact killed in a US drone strike over the weekend. The new leader pictured there was a senior judge during the Taliban's brief rule of Afghanistan. Well, let's get a closer look at this now from our Nick Paton Walsh. He's following the developments from Beirut. Good to have you with us, Nick. What can you tell us about this new leader?
Well, I have to say, we don't know an awful lot about him, not a particularly public figure. Information has been coming out since the Taliban's announcement this morning, in which they in one breath confirmed the death of Mullah Mansour, declared 3 days of mourning for that, and said that Haibatullah Akhundzada would be his successor. Now, we know this is not really a man who's seen much of the front line, predominantly a cleric, a man who was around during the Mujahideen's fight against the Soviets back in the 80s, had a senior role in the judiciary when the Taliban briefly ran the country in the 90s, and hails from Kandahar, from way down there at the south, where a lot of the Taliban's Pashtun constituency hails from. So potentially has those sort of tribal links that will hold him in good stead in that particular role. The real issue, though, is this is the less controversial of all the choices potentially before the Quetta Shura, the Taliban council that chooses a successor like this. The dangerous option many felt they could have gone for was Siraj Haqqani, who's the deputy still and was previously for Mullah Mansour for military operations, a man who the US calls Al-Qaeda's chief facilitator in Afghanistan. He didn't get the job. This lesser known, perhaps more moderate or less controversial figure did, but I have to add note of caution here, really. You know, it's unlikely, frankly, that he, not a man with much frontline experience, is going to come to the leadership of this huge, fractious and at times quite tired insurgency and decide to pursue peace talks as his first move. We saw Mullah Mansour use military victories, battlefield prowess as a way to try and consolidate his leadership after a period of infighting. Well, Haibatullah Akhundzada doesn't have that kind of issue with many different rivals trying to keep him out of the job, as far as we know, because the succession was pretty quick. But his clerical history probably means he will also seek to keep territory coming into Taliban hands and keep them pushing against Afghan security forces. So none of this, at this stage, sounds like a moment for Afghan civilians to relax and feel that we're going to see less violence in the months ahead. I'm afraid, sadly, we could see worse.
Right. Lynda? And we do know his predecessor obviously was killed in Pakistan. Does the Taliban have to be more careful going forward about using Pakistan?
Well, I think that's the suggestion, certainly, and it is remarkable how high-profile that raid was, probably the most high-profile strike inside Pakistani territory since bin Laden was killed in 2001 by US Navy SEALs when he was hiding in Abbottabad. This drone strike just inside the border, as far as we can tell. No official warning to the Pakistanis ahead of it. Pakistan outraged, but in the same sentence also saying they hope peace talks will continue. And I think it marks two things. It marks a sign of impatience in Washington at Islamabad's sort of dual face on this. Publicly, they espouse peace talks and are cracking down on Taliban in their territory, but quite clearly, too, they're allowing Afghan Taliban inside Pakistan, too, and continuing to allow them a sense of safe haven there. So I think, really, it does show to Afghan Taliban leaders they have to be more cautious where they go. Mullah Mansour, well, reports suggest that maybe he wasn't that careful about his personal safety, more public in the way that he travelled. Well, obviously, he was quickly found by the United States drone there, and I think that may cause many Afghan Taliban leaders to be much more cautious about their personal safety as the months go ahead.
OK,
Lynda?
Nick Paton Walsh, thanks for staying across all of that for us.